everyone. Welcome to Impromptu Business Chat. I'm Mark Curtis and...
I'm James Lay, Mark.
This is an impromptu business chat.
Oh, Mark, that was a terrible intro to our very first episode of Impromptu Business Chat. What we have learnt in the following 60 episodes is pretty scary, isn't it?
Oh, James, I'm embarrassed listening back to it. We were mere novices. Now we are novices with a little bit of experience.
In fairness, that was probably one of your better intros.
Well, do you know what, James? I think, we've got to 60 now. I think it would be a great opportunity just to reflect on some of the lessons, our journey, and some of the bits which have come out in those 60 episodes. What do you think?
Great. So this is a Diamond anniversary reflection episode rather than the best bits, because I think the plan is going forwards. We've recorded so much great stuff. It's buried in the vault in the back catalogue. So we're going to draw some of those best bits out and have those as bonus episodes in the future. But we have been on, it's a bit like X Factor, isn't it? We've been on a journey, and we thought we'd reflect on 60 episodes. I don't know how many minutes of recording that is, but it's an awful lot. We've got some highlights to reflect on, haven't we, on that journey, Mark?
We have, James, and musical links have been a key theme for these 60, as well as obviously business tips. And before we get going, I've got to get a musical link in here around the word diamond.
Diamonds are forever?
Well, Shirley Bassey wasn't where I was going to go, but it's not a bad shout, James. I was actually going to be
Looks like we made it, Shania Twain.
Well, we have made it to 60 again, another good shout. Okay. But James, I've been missing out on my metal links just recently. So Diamond, the band Diamond Head, who I'm guessing you have never heard of.
No, we need tumbleweeds sound effects coming through, I think, at this point, Mark.
Okay, well, James, this is where it's going to make a difference, not to you, but to a lot of maybe some of our listeners. So Diamond Head were an English metal band, and they did a song called Am I Evil? And Metallica covered it, and a lot of people out there will probably think it was actually a Metallica song, and they took it massive. So Diamond Head have done really well off the back of Metallica. So there you go. Diamond Head is the band, Am I Evil is the song, and that's my musical link for episode 60.
Thanks, Mark. Now you've lost 3/4 of our listenership in one fell swoop, but yeah, excellent. So the first episode that we were just going to draw on was, well, we'd already done the first one, I suppose, which was your very weak intro into the first episode. We were rabbits in headlights a little bit with that first episode, but and it was very much impromptu, as all the episodes have been, haven't they, Mark?
Yeah, that was certainly impromptu, wasn't it? Absolutely.
I think we only decided to do the podcast about 2 days earlier.
Yeah.
So it was impromptu, but it's worked. It's the runaway train success.
Talking of runaway successes, it makes me reflect back to our episode 9, which was the COVID hokey cokey, and we were talking about our local football club, Norwich City, which they had a runaway success last year by winning the championship, but this year in the Premiership, not so. And James, you were reflecting on Norwich's ability to come back from behind.
They're always looking for the eventualities, and they're prepared in advance. And I think it's just, the reality is there's going to be bumps in the road, as I say, going forwards, and rare occasions that Norwich go behind in a game. They've already prepared how they're going to play going forwards, And
I know what happens.
Yeah.
Further behind.
We can't plan easily going forwards. It's going to be stop-start. It's going to be in and out, as you say, Mark, the hokey cokey.
And some things don't change. Norwich lost again last night, but I'm sure that they'll be on the winning trail very soon. But it's interesting. We reflecting back again on our journey and those discussions we were having on episode 9, which will have been around June last year, 2020. A lot of that has really come through. It's very pertinent to businesses at the moment, with general shortages on the shelves and price increases and things. Managing your supply chain has never been more important.
Absolutely, James. And I think one of the things you said in there, I love the phrase you came out with, which was just in time, not just in case. But actually, given some of the lead times at the moment, I think there is actually a shift where people have maybe got to grab stock when they can get it as well.
Yeah, great point, Mark. Great point. We're in quite unusual times at the moment, aren't we? So again, sort of looking at our download stats, we can see that one of the real hot topics throughout the 18 months or so of Impromptu Business Chat has been furlough. There's been an awful lot of interest in episodes that have drawn reference to that and advised on that.
Yeah, I think on reflection, James, what we should have done is we should have just put furlough in the title of all of them. But isn't it interesting? Like the word furlough, none of us actually knew about it until the pandemic came along.
I'll be honest, I remember Googling it when I first heard it, because I didn't have a clue.
And do you know what? Apparently there's something like 170,000 words in the English language, and about 35,000 of them are redundant words. So I suspect furlough fell into that camp up until about 18 months ago, and then it's been sort of dragged out of the archives, dusted off, and here we are, a new word which is back in our vocabulary again. So talking about things which should have to be dusted off and maybe sort of a bit out of date, James.
Other than your wallet.
Other than my wallet, absolutely. Hey, but it's all digital now, so I don't need my wallet. I'm thinking about an episode where I got not only a musical link, I think it was your musical link, but a musical impression as well. Can you remember that one?
Was it Mick Jagger?
No, this was dusting off something out of the archive, and that was Tom Jones.
Yeah, I do vaguely remember. That was terrible.
Well, I think it's one of my finer moments, so I think we should take a listen.
And I don't mean, if we're going to get musical links in, I don't mean the band Kiss, Crazy Nights.
Yeah, good one.
And I don't mean the song Kiss, Kiss by Prince.
Prince did the original, and covered a couple of years later, I think, by
Tom Jones.
And The Art of Noise. Yeah.
And The Art of Noise.
Yeah. Do you know what?
They were.
There's a reason I know this, and it's going to be another little Curtis story. Okay, so if you just bear with me it won't be a long one because it's not that interesting, but I'm going to share it anyway. I had a tape with it on, and I also had on that same tape there was another song which was Art of Noise featuring Dwayne Eddy, the legendary guitar player from probably the 60s, I guess. And the reason I had it on a tape is because I think I've mentioned before on the podcast my Spectrum 48K and my Spectrum Plus 2, I think it was called, where it had the inbuilt cassette recorder for the games. And I bought a new game called Operation Wolf. Can you remember Operation Wolf? It was in the arcades.
I had Operation Wolf. That came with a gun, didn't it?
Not on a Spectrum. Not on a Specky, it didn't.
I'm pretty sure one of them came with a gun which you could point at the TV. That was advanced technology.
It sounds like you might have had
been a Commodore.
Yeah, I had a Specky. It didn't have a gun with it, but it was that game, Operation Wolf, where you were looking at it through that guy's eyes who had the flat top haircut.
Yep.
Anyway, with the cassette which came to load the game, you got another cassette, and that was the cassette that had those songs on it. How random is that? But it's true. I had it as a Spectrum, and it came with this cassette for some reason. It was a good song. Quite
different approaches. Prince took quite a high approach to the sound, and Tom Jones was a little bit deeper than that, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. You don't want me to sing it, do you, James?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, go on. Which one are you going for?
You don't have to be beautiful to rule my world.
Yeah.
That was Prince.
That the Tom Jones
one.
Anyway, I'm going to get back to it. Do you want to do Tom Jones one before you get out of your system?
You don't have to be beautiful. No, I haven't got a naturally deep. I don't know. I was trying to do some sort of Welsh accent, and it just didn't happen, did it?
So over the 60 episodes, we've interviewed some really interesting guests with some great value to share with us. And to sort of reflect over those episodes, we had Dr. Chris Mason, was our very first interview episode. That was episode number 20. And since then, we've interviewed a host of other people on a real diverse range of subjects. And talking about diversity, that is actually our most popular episode to date. In episode 23, we interviewed Andy Nicol and Sue Liebird from Abstract UK.
Now, there's lots of examples where quotas don't work. Businesses coming back to gender and developing female talent. There's a charter that Women in Banking and Finance have signed up to, and it's you've got to publish how many women you've got in senior roles and what your targets are and what your performance is. That's a measurement. Now, you could argue there's a measurement, a quota, and so there has to be intervention to make change. It's how then, once that intervention happens, it's how then that industry or that sport or that business, how it then integrates it. And then it becomes more natural. And then it just becomes part of the fabric and the culture and the way that a company or a sport or an industry does things. So I don't think there's a yes or no answer. Do quotas work? Well, in some examples they have. In other examples they haven't. But it's what you do with them afterwards, and to embed it properly is, I think, where you will get the most sustainable change as a result.
And James, I think probably from all of our interviews, that was probably the most challenging one, because it was a topic where we were having to watch our own language and think about how we were going to phrase the questions. And actually, Andy and Sue were absolutely amazing guests, because I think they really went into a topic where maybe all of us feel a bit uncomfortable. We stand on eggshells. We're not quite sure how to approach this. So for me, it was an eye-opening episode, and I'm sure it would have been for the listeners, which is why the episode really took off.
Yeah, I learned an awful lot from just chatting with Andy and Sue, both during the interview and before and afterwards as well. And as I say, the stats don't lie. It's been the biggest hit. So.
Yeah, absolutely, James. And talking of Andy Nicol, who obviously had before his business career was an international rugby union player for Scotland, that makes me reflect on one of our other interview episodes, which was with Simon Mundy, and he was talking about another rugby player, but in this instance it was a rugby league player, and that's Jamie Peacock, who also captained England rugby league team, and I thought there was a great bit where he was talking about imposter syndrome and how Jamie Peacock overcame that to be an all-time great in his sport.
You know, we tend to build things up, don't we, to be bigger than actually they are in reality. And from then on, he had this mantra. Whenever he would get outside of his comfort zone, whenever he would broaden his horizons, naturally he would feel uncomfortable. Naturally, those doubts would pop up. You know, that's the way our brains work. Our brains are there to keep us safe. When we get into a situation that's a bit uncomfortable, they are like, don't do this. Hence imposter syndrome. And he just had this mantra, get off the bus, get off the bus. He used it throughout his whole career. So he had it the whole way through. But, you know, it happens to everyone. But you just got to remember, get off the bus.
That Simon Mundy episode, we were so lucky and fortunate to have Simon on board for that. And he's got a book out later in the year. Perhaps we'll be able to encourage him back on to talk through that. And the parallels between sports psychology and business life was quite clear from that interview. And we've had some really interesting sort of dynamics in recent months with sports psychology. You look at the likes of Emma Raducanu with her fabulous victory in the US Tennis Open, and sort of reflecting back on the challenges she had back at Wimbledon earlier in the year, to turn that around, the mental strength and resilience that took, I think sort of underlines the importance of psychology and also well-being. Prior to the Simon Mundy interview, we had a fascinating chat with Louise Newby of 3Eggs Training, where she delved into the importance of well-being within the work environment. One of the key things that we took out of that was how important it is as leaders to drive those discussions. And here is Louise talking just about that.
So, Louise, how does a business leader look to successfully manage mental health in their organisation? What steps should they be taking?
Well, the most important thing is to make sure that mental health, good mental health, is advocated from the very top. I think historically we've all been quite scared of advocating top-down cultures for different initiatives within businesses. But actually for mental health, it's absolutely important and vital, because if the leadership of an organisation is talking openly about and supports mental health across the whole organisation, then that's going to help to reinforce that message that within this company, it's seen as a positive to talk about your mental health. It's not something that's going to be held against you. So one way to do that, and a really positive step that leaders can take, is to talk about their own mental health and to acknowledge that during our lives, we'll all experience challenges with our mental health, and that's okay. That's part of life. They can share how they got support for their own mental health issues, how they got through a challenging time, and then in time, experiencing and managing your mental health can be seen as a positive attribute rather than a weakness, something that demonstrates resilience and strength in the workplace rather than the weakness that it can have had in the past. The next thing is to make sure that everybody within the organisation receives training to help them understand the signs and symptoms of poor mental health. That might be through a workshop, for example, or you might provide more in-depth courses to train people to be a mental health first aider or a wellbeing champion. But having people from all levels of the organisation trained means that everybody is bought into this concept that within this company, mental health is really, really important.
And it's interesting what Louise says in that interview there around leading from the front and being vulnerable as well, and sharing what works and what doesn't work as leaders. And certainly that's something I've tried to do. That interview went out around about November time, and certainly early the spring 2021. I did share some resilience tips with our own members of our own organisation and my own experiences. And I think the more we talk about that, as Louise says, the more value there is, the more acceptance there'll be to take this subject on.
Absolutely. And, the listeners will not be surprised to hear me say that it's a big topic for me. And James, I think we should put a prize out there for someone who can tell us how many times I've mentioned mindfulness over the 60 episodes so far.
Absolutely, Mark. And mindfulness, one of the key parts of mindfulness is looking at yourself and your team around you. We talked about well-being and this journey that everyone's been on through the 60 episodes that we've been recording. We've gone in and out of lockdown a number of times. We've done that hokey-cokey, and we're now establishing a new normal. And there is an impact on well-being. There is a need in business to attract and retain the very best talent as well, which brings us right bang up to date with one of our latest episodes on the Great Resignation. I appreciate we might need to tweak the policies that we've got, but we've got to be careful that the first challenge we have from a client or an employee or whatever, that we remember why we were bringing those policies in. We hold firm to them where we possibly can. And I think on that same line, Mark, we have to be really careful. We mention this on most podcasts, but how we communicate this is not just the words in the policy, it's also the tone and physiology we give alongside that. So we keep banging on about it, but words is around 7% of the communication we give. 38% is in the tone that we give that message, and 55% is in the physiology. So you can say to somebody, yeah, you can work from home if you like, okay. Or you can say, yeah, you can work from home if you like. Completely different. Same words, but said in a completely different way. And I think, we've just got to make sure there is that consistency between the policy and our behaviours as leaders and how we communicate that message.
Yeah, James, I think I really enjoyed that episode in its entirety because I think it's valuable for our business as well as hopefully some tips to the listeners. And that whole thing about listening to your team, having a great vision. But as you said, all comes down in the end to congruency of what you're saying and how you say it, and your example you gave there is a classic of maybe leaders who don't truly believe what they're saying to the team. And that belief is key if we really want to attract and retain our people.
Well, I think it's time to wrap up, Mark, on the reflection of these 60 episodes. But regardless of the download numbers and all those sorts of things, actually, I very much feel like we've achieved what we wanted to do from the outset, which was to try and make business a bit more fun. We didn't want to produce something that we wouldn't want to listen to ourselves. And I think we've achieved that, haven't we, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think back to that first planning session where we were like, pandemic has hit, what are we going to do? And we came up with this concept of an impromptu business chat, which was going to be informative, fun, and almost like having a chat with your friends outside of work, but with a purpose. And we didn't know if it was going to work. We weren't sure how it was going to go, but we took a slight chance and we went for it with the amazing support of the team around us, with our marketing team, Lizzie, Kerry Ann, Amy, and we mustn't forget our awesome producer, Rob, who actually makes the show sound much better than when we do the original recording. So thank you, Rob. You are a legend. The team have been amazing and they've supported us in this journey. And I think the one thing I've taken out of this, James, is it's always worth having a go at stuff, because if you don't try, you don't know, and you don't want to live with regrets. And I actually would have regretted if we hadn't have done it. And I just encourage anyone, if you've got stuff out there you're thinking about doing, just have a crack at it, go for it.
Absolutely. And we've had you're right, we've got a great team behind us, but also we've had some fabulous guests on the show, and I'm looking forward to releasing those bite-sized clips out of those longer interview episodes, because there's such great content in there, some really great guests. So we'll be back for a new season 6, in a week or two's time. Can you believe it, Mark? We'll be moving on to season 6.
Oh, absolutely unbelievable, James. And I didn't appreciate the reach geographically we would have had. We've had listeners, our second biggest listenership is in America. We're huge in Belgium. There's no territory untouched on our stats, which is unbelievable, James.
I know. I look down the list and it's quite scary, really, that people in Serbia have listened, Taiwan, Myanmar, Malta.
I know. And you know, we're now closing this episode down, and I've got to get one more musical link in, okay? And it's going to be another thrash metal one. And this is a song by my all-time favourite band, Anthrax, which is Auf Wiedersehen.
Okay. Thanks, Mark. So I hope you've enjoyed the show. If you'd like to listen to us again, then please do. There'll be lots more episodes in the future. There's lots more in the vault for you to have a look back over. And if you've enjoyed the show, please like and follow. Do get in contact. We always respond to our listeners when they get in touch. So please do let us know if there's anything you'd like us to cover in the future. Any thoughts or ideas, we're always respond to you. So thank you very much for everybody that has responded to date. And if you know somebody that might be interested in the show, please do share a link. So until season 6, Mark, take care.
And you.
And we'll see everybody soon.
See you soon, everybody. Thank you.